as somebody that has the opportunity in one of those roles to be visible and show up and talk about what a great place it is to work and, you know, hopefully put it on the radar of some young women that might not be thinking about automotive when they left school.
And it's also really exciting to see women who go off to have families or to start families come back really, really motivated to go on to the next levels of their career.
Hello and welcome to Women in the Driving Seat, the podcast that shines a spotlight on wonderful women in automotive. This week, we're going to be talking women and big vehicles. I'm hugely excited to be joined by two formidable women, Lisa J from JLR and Amy-Louise Carter from Daimler Truck. First up, before we get on to the conversation, we have our guest bios. Lisa J started her career at 16 as a technical apprentice in the construction industry and fell in love with the automotive industry by chance when she took on a temporary role at Jaguar's Browns Lane plant in 1999. I remember those days. Since then, she has worked in a variety of roles across manufacturing, engineering and product development, and before joining JLR was at Aston Martin. At JLR, she has worked on the Jaguar F-Type, Jaguar I-Pace and Range Rover Evoque, to name a few. She has been in her current role as Range Rover Programme Chief for 3.5 years, leading future development projects on both Range Rover and Range Rover Sport. Lisa is the executive sponsor of the Gender Equality Network at JLR, an employee-led network that is passionate about driving inclusion and supporting initiatives to drive gender equality. Lisa is 49, 26 years married, with 2 sons aged 18 and 20 and 2 dogs. She lives in the beautiful Warwickshire countryside and outside of work, enjoys running, lifting heavy weights, which we're going to come back to, and a bit of cold water swimming. Amy is head of product at Daimler Truck UK, where she's been since 2022. Before that, she spent years in the franchise dealer network, running commercial vehicle workshops and getting hands-on with the realities of the industry. I'll be asking you about that. She lives in sunny Suffolk with her husband, their 3-year-old daughter and 2 cats. A keen gardener and firm believer in the power of a good break, she sums up her life as always having the next holiday booked to help on those days where I feel like I'm losing my mind. Yes, I'm with you. Hello, welcome to you both. Thanks for joining me today. We'll dive straight in. First question, as always. Lisa, what plates have you been spinning? What balls have you been dropping this week?
So A-level season has landed in our house. My youngest son is just started, took his first exam today. Russian history, not very much something that I can help with. But so the plate spinning is I'm trying to be a bit of a chief wellbeing officer. So reminding about hydration, sleep, providing M&S picky bit snacks on regular occasions. That's all on top of a really, really busy time at work. These things always come at these sort of stages, I find. And the project I'm working on at the moment, we're about to move from a virtual phase, which we've been in for around 2 years, over into the physical phase where we start to actually build prototypes. So there's a lot of balls being thrown up in the air, and I'm trying to be very skilled at catching them, but I am very reliant on a lot of people trying to help me out here. So don't think I've dropped anything this week, but it has been very close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Amy, what about you?
I think the same as anybody that tries to manage full-time work and family life, it's a constant balancing act. And some days I feel like I'm absolutely nailing it, and others I'm just glad that everybody's got clean socks or I've remembered to get the cat food. And I think it's a daily difference and a juggle. And what I've learned sometimes is that, you know, when you're a busy person and you're managing family and work, sometimes something's got to give, and does it really matter? No. So I'd say that just a balancing act. And although little things might drop, I've learned over the years just to be chilled about these things.
Wow.
We can only do what we can do.
You're going to be our Zen master of the podcast. I like it. Okay, Lisa, Range Rover. Oh my goodness. I mean, if I was paid 15 times what I'm paid, I would definitely have one. It is a thoroughly beautiful and very clever car. You are Programme Chief. What does that mean?
So Programme Chief leads a team who takes a concept, something we want to do, either through design, through technology, or through updating the car through legal changes or market trends, from that idea all the way through to production and cars being at our retailers to sell. So I kind of call it being a conductor of a really, really great orchestra, and my job is to make sure that everybody is doing what they need to be doing at the right time to produce an amazing car. It does split out into 3 stages. We've got the sort of creative and innovation stage, which is really, really good to sort of work through what we want from the car, what our customers want from the car, what technologies around, what technology do we want to offer, because technology for technology's sake isn't what Range Rover is about. We then go into a really detailed phase of engineering and making sure that everything we want to do can be done. It's not always possible, and a lot of that is around trying to work through compromises and trying to work to get the best possible product. And then we get into the last phase, which is the crazy phase of launch, where we do a lot of pre-production prototypes. We prove out our facility in Solihull that it can produce the vehicles at the rates we need, and it's certified in, I think it's about 102 markets, but don't quote me. And the cars can then go to our customers. So that's in a nutshell my job.
Wow, I had no idea it was such a kind of holistic overview of the entire product.
Indeed.
So does that mean your role is predominantly desk-based, factory-based, lab-based, work from home-based?
I'm not very good at work from home. By choice, I do feed off energy of others, and I do really feed off the product. I enjoy getting into my Range Rover in the morning. It sets me up for the day, and I do love driving out of work to then set myself up for whatever else I'm doing outside of work. It does vary. I could be in the studio with our creative team working on design progression. I could be in our labs working on virtual assessments we're doing or looking at CAD data. Could be out on the test track, which is always fun, driving the latest level of tune, or looking at what our competitors are doing and doing some competitor assessments. When we get into that launch phase, I tend to be based in the factory though, so I tend to be based almost full time in the factory. So I'm on hand to understand how our cars are being built, any issues, how we resolve them quickly. So it does vary week to week, month to month.
Wow. So how big's your team? Or are you just working as a kind of solo person across multiple teams?
It's I've got a team of senior leadership of about 7 people. They've then run numbers of teams that are cross-functional, so that they take on people from our procurement, from our commercial terms, from our engineering, to actually develop aspects of the car.
Right. And I've got to ask, because you mentioned at some point you might be out on the test track, putting it through its paces. So have you got to be a good driver?
You've got to understand how our car performs. There's no boys club of you've got to be able to do X, Y, and Z, but you do
oversteer a Range Rover.
Yeah, but you've got to be able to understand how our car performs. So we do internal driving tests. We do a lot of driver training, and I've obviously done all of that. And we've also got to be able to understand how customers experience our car, because we've got some extreme bookends. We've got people who do want to drive like that or want to go and do sand driving in Dubai, but we've also got people that just want to drive their car every day around country roads in Cheltenham or around New York City. So you've also got to be able to understand multiple customers.
Wowee. Okay, thanks very much. Amy, head of product, Daimler Truck, what does that involve?
Actually, there's going to be some synergies with what Lisa does, actually. But yeah, fundamentally, so I similarly have a team of 7 people, and our team is focused on bringing the Daimler Truck portfolio to the UK. So that is around the product strategy, looking at pricing, focusing on queries and specifications around sort of sales engineering, and also looking at market insights and data. And there's also some sort of regulatory compliance in there. So it's quite a broad, similarly, it's quite a broad range of topics that the team look after. And we've recently brought our sort of 65 vehicle demo fleet into this area of the business as well. So that's something new and an additional challenge. So it can vary. Sometimes we really are looking at big picture, and we're collaborating with our colleagues in Germany or across the globe about what the future looks like and having that influence in what the product lineup is going to look like for the UK in the future. And then another day we might be looking at really detailed spec work and deciding, changing our standard specifications for what our dealers, etc., can order. So, no 2 days are the same actually, and it's really interesting because of that.
And two stupid questions for me. There's always a couple in each podcast episode. What define truck and explain to me the whole Daimler-Mercedes relationship or not.
Yes, okay. So Daimler Truck was part of the Daimler AG group, which includes Mercedes-Benz cars and Mercedes-Benz vans. However, in December 22, Daimler Truck became its own independent company. And that was a strategic move because they realised that they wanted to move away and focus specifically on heavy goods vehicles and logistics. And ultimately, when you're, although obviously a really well-known car and van brand as well, the customer base is very, very different. So by moving away to have a specific truck dedication, that allows us to make those changes and be able to focus our strategy specifically on the truck sector. So as you can imagine, that a lot of work has gone into that, and it's taken a while to move away, including changing our offices, people deciding which brands they're going to split with. But it's getting to a few years down the line now, it's getting to a really exciting point where we're starting to see those changes within our dealer network and being able to focus on trucks. So within the Daimler Truck brand, you have Mercedes-Benz trucks, which is probably the name that everybody has heard of, but we also have Fuso trucks in the UK as well. And then globally, Daimler Truck is a global brand, and you have other brands across the globe, like Freightliner in
Is
the
a truck
USA.
just another name for a lorry?
It is just another name for a lorry of all different sizes. So, we could be going from, smaller trucks, which might be your local builders merchants or your landscape gardeners, for example, to long haul distance trucks, to specialized Mercedes-Benz vehicles as well. We have a brand, sort of off-road brand called Unimog, which might have specialist firefighting machines that could go out in Australia in the outback and things like that. So real diverse range of trucks and lorries and commercial vehicles.
Okay, interesting. Now, trucks to me feels like a way more masculine thing than cars, and I say that with all the loaded implications of that. I'm already a woman in quite a male environment, have been for 25 years in automotive, but trucks feels like, rightly or wrongly, feels like a level beyond that in terms of the gender gap. Is it a much more masculine world that you inhabit?
There is some truth in that, and I think historically it has been, but certainly, I've been in the trade for sort of just over 15 years now, and I've started to see the shift already. And I think the reason behind it is trucks has this, it has those connotations of being hard work, of being industrial, perhaps being dirty and not so glamorous as the car side of things. So obviously then that has those male stereotypes that perhaps would want to go into that kind of field of work. But actually, it's far from that. We're in a place where the truck world is really exciting. We're trying to, lead sustainable transportation with battery electric trucks. And there's so much technology and innovation going on. Actually, there's absolutely space for anybody with the right mindset in trucks.
I'm assuming that not only is there probably lower representation of women in the truck industry, but also your customer base has fewer women in it than passenger vehicles.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. They're among drivers, among fleet managers, among owners of operators. Yeah, absolutely. There is still an underrepresentation of women, but it is changing. And actually, within our business as the OEM, actually it doesn't feel like that at all. We have lots of women coming up and coming into the business. I think when you look at the commercial dealer side of things, which is where my background is, when I was running commercial vehicle workshops, still less so in that area, because that is more sort of the hands-on, the workshops, and I suppose that still is not appealing to some women, or it's not in their mindset to think about going there when they're leaving school. But actually, especially within the OEM environment, we've got so many really interesting and different career choices that we actually are starting to see quite a few women come through. So I think it's important, as somebody that has the opportunity in one of those roles, to be visible and show up, and talk about what a great place it is to work, and you know, hopefully put it on the radar of some young women that might not be thinking about automotive when they left school, which I didn't, and actually choose to come to this field, and not just by accident.
Well, we're already halfway through, which means it's time for podcast pit stop. Yes. Our quick fire round. Let's see, Amy, you can go first.
Great.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Van or lorry?
Lorry.
Of course. Petrol or diesel?
Petrol.
See, I wouldn't normally ask that one, but commercial vehicles, I'm thinking maybe diesel's still right in there. Anyway, stop. Quick fire. Friends or family? Ooh.
Friends.
Retailer or OEM?
OEM.
Stand or sit?
Sit.
Drinks or dinner?
Drinks.
Nice. Woman after my own heart. Lisa. Four-wheel drive or winter tyres? A question for the engineers.
Four-wheel drive.
Of course, being a Land Rover. Jaguar or Land Rover?
Range Rover.
Nicely done. Sourdough or granary?
Sourdough.
Physics or chemistry?
Physics.
Newton or Faraday?
Faraday.
Look at me, I'm an English person. I'm trying to think of some sciencey questions. Plug-in hybrid or pure electric?
Plug-in hybrid.
For now.
No, for now.
I could do, by the way, an episode on plug-in hybrids because I'm a massive fan. I'm just lobbing that one in there, but I know it's a contentious issue. Okay, back to the questions. Lisa, we were starting to talk about women in engineering. You know, I mean, across the board, we know there is a definite gender gap in engineering and automotive engineering, but I feel like at Jaguar Land Rover, you've done quite a lot to address the balance.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my own senior leadership team is 40% female. On Range Rover, as a group of delivering cars to market, I've got a female manufacturing director. Our body engineering chief is female. So there are lots of us around. What's also really encouraging for me is to see women going on to the first levels of leadership, which shows the pipeline work that was done probably 10 years ago is now starting to show real fruition. And it's also really exciting to see women who go off to have families or to start families come back really, really motivated to go on to the next levels of their career. All my big promotions have happened since I've become a mum, and I'm more and more motivated than ever. And I see it in people now that they come back. That some may want some flexibility, but they're so passionate about furthering their careers and about developing as people and adding value to our business.
It's a really important point, that, isn't it? Because I think we all think this motherhood penalty exists, and employers are going to look at women coming back to work and think, oh, you're immediately going to have one eye on the clock. You're going to be thinking about the kids. You're going to be off when they're sick. You're essentially not going to be as dedicated an employee, let alone have ambition.
Yeah, I think that is changing. I mean, lots of people always used to ask me, Erin, how do you do it? How do you have two small children and have a great career? And I used to start the sentence with, I'm really lucky. I have a husband who works flexibly. And I used to be like, I'm so proud of that. Actually, it's taken me a while, but actually I really need to refrain how that's worded. We are two mature adults managing two children. They're a little bit more grown up, but dogs, family, older parents, caring responsibilities. And we've made the decisions that work best for us. And sharing domestic load is really, really important for women to progress. You can have as many policies as you want in the workplace, but if a woman is stressed out coming home to a life admin list that is unachievable, it's going to suffer. So we've got to make inroads in that, and it's really important that me as a leader as well refrain that this is just a choice between adults who are choosing to parent or choosing to care for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And also to pick up on something else you said there, you know, how many women versus how many men start a conversation with, I'm really lucky, because I just don't hear men say, I'm really lucky that much. And women seem it's an apology almost before they continue with the rest of their sentence. It's mad, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Amy, do you think, I think some people listening might think as well, oh, poor Amy, she's ended up in trucks because she didn't make it in cars. You know, that there's this idea perhaps that trucks is a subservient industry to cars and no one would choose trucks over cars. It's a bit of an unloved sibling. What do you think?
Well, hopefully, obviously, I'm going to say that is definitely not the case. In fact, I would argue it's completely the opposite. You know, trucks are the backbone of the economy. If you look into, you know, ultimately what's behind the deliveries in our supermarket shelves, getting the supplies to our hospitals, behind construction projects, you can link it all back to a truck. And I think what was especially telling for me, being in this industry during the COVID period, is, you know, at that time I was working in our commercial dealer network, running workshops, and I didn't have a single day off, no furlough. You know, ultimately we needed to make sure that the trucks were in and maintained and they were on the road to keep everything going and to make sure that those loo rolls that are running out got to the supermarket shelves in the trucks. So
yeah, I mean, we all realised in the pandemic, didn't we, the value of the commercial fleet.
We did, and I think, you know, that actually, you know, really underpins why the industry is so important, and that it's always going to be there even in times like that when other businesses might fail and shut down. But aside from that, also it's such an exciting place where, from a sustainability and zero emissions transport perspective as well, there's such huge innovation going on, and the technology that is in trucks now, you know, is a world away from what it used to be. So, you know, I spent a few years in the car world. It wasn't for me. I'm a trucker, and I think I'll always be a trucker.
Yes, that's got to be printed on a T-shirt for you, hasn't it? Right there. I mean, a really interesting point on sustainability, isn't it? Because we know what a huge percentage of greenhouse gases and so on emitted by road transport, and within road transport the percentage of that comes from the HGV and commercial vehicle sector is huge, and that if you are the test bed and the innovators reducing carbon footprints for vehicles, it's going to have a knock-on effect on the rest of the road transport network, and there'll be learnings to be taken there all over the place. So yes, you really are at the forefront of that. Paint a picture for me of the truck industry. Is, you know, I've worked in the passenger car industry for years. I know most people. I know most companies. I know the vibe, the ethos, what's going on in terms of D&I, profits, all sorts of different things going on. Is the trucks industry a small industry, a friendly one, competitive one, global, local?
It is a fascinating mix. I think it's global in impact, but sometimes, you know, really local in reach as well. And you have within the truck world and operators, you have, you know, tight-knit communities, you have really long-standing relationships that go on for decades, and it's fiercely competitive as well, and there's lots of innovation. Ultimately, you know, the people that are buying our vehicles, they're there to do a job. It's business to business, so they need to make sure that they're performing best for their own businesses. So that does lead to huge competition. But like, you know, any industry, we have our challenges in sort of trying to lead sustainable transportation. We've got the midst of sort of a digital transformation. We've got you know, that's
interesting. So can you, because, you know, we had this kind of bricks and mortar versus online buying experience in cars, so can you spec up and buy your truck online now?
Yes, you pretty much can. There's a lot of it is moving to be more electronic. And when I talk about the transformation in the digital services as well, that's another way, aside from the money that the business from an R&D perspective is spending on, you know, battery technology and hydrogen fuel cell. It's also how operators can make their fleet more efficient with the the digital services, i.e. getting that data out of their vehicles to make their operations more efficient, ultimately save money. And there's so much data that's now available to operators coming straight from the truck about the driver's style, are they harsh braking, all these kind of things. They can predict when the truck's going to need to have its pads replaced. It can predict when it needs its next service. All this information is available at the click of a button. So, there's lots and lots of innovation out there. It's a really interesting place to be, I think.
Really interesting. No, I agree. Lisa, talk to me a bit about the Gender Equality Network at JLR. I was about to say, I was lucky enough. See, we're all doing it, don't we? I came to speak at the Gen Network, I don't know, a couple of years ago now, maybe.
Conference.
At the conference, yeah. And I was blown away. Auto Trader here, we've got our own internal networks and we're quite proud of how they've developed and that we've been in it for a long time and we're really invested in them. And then I went to JLR where it's on like another level and another scale because you're a huge organisation. The footfall at Gaydon is humongous. You've got thousands of employees in these networks. And also, dare I say it, I was blown away because it gave me a new view of JLR that I feel sometimes doesn't come across if you are a consumer who's just buying quite a kind of big, aggressive 4x4. You maybe think that ethos is kind of infiltrates throughout the organisation. But what I saw at the Gen Network was a lot of humility, a lot of openness, a lot of kindness, and a real open-minded view of D&I.
Yeah, so Gender Equality Network is one of 14 networks that we have at JLR. It's very active in supporting everybody in the workplace to be their authentic self. It does focus on 3 pillars that we believe are really important to the well-being and the success of everybody who works there. So we've got allyship, which is massive. So gender equality is not just a group of girls getting together, and we've got about 40% of our members are male and they are actively promoting and supporting allyship. Second is career development, looking at initiatives and ways that we can get women mainly to apply for jobs and giving women the confidence to apply for the next level or work on what development they need, what mentorship they need, and done in a way that a network does slightly differently from a HR-based program. So looking at a bit of creativity and innovation. And then the final pillar we've got, which is why I'm so passionately involved in the network, was actually women's health, because women's health has a massive impact to how a woman can perform her job. I came about this in a really roundabout way. I got diagnosed with cervical cancer about 3 years ago, and I had treatment. I recovered really well, and I went through surgical menopause. And what I wanted to do was something really quick and simple, was to talk to a large team of predominantly male engineers about what this is, because I was 46 and my own knowledge was quite poor, and I feel a little bit ashamed of that, being female. But I wanted something that would speak in their terms, or speak in terms that weren't pink and flowery, that were very factual, providing awareness, tips for conversations, and signposting for support. So ended up with the creativity and innovation of the Gem Network in about 24 hours of, how about this? I'm like, this is brilliant. I can go and talk to a group of people about this. And I jokingly, I've never had so many people stop me and go, this is amazing, Lisa. My wife is struggling with this, or I've got people in my team that are struggling with this and I don't know how to support them. And that's where that real quick network creativity comes in. And when you do something good in a network like that, it grows arms and legs really quickly. So I ended up going to talk to the board with the same pack of presentation within about 2 weeks of doing it. And I'm well used to talking to our board members. I present statuses on big projects, all of that. So although I'm used to being in the boardroom, actually being quite open and honest and talking about what we need was really helpful. What it actually did was then created a menopause policy. Network didn't create it, but that horsepower of a network led to a brilliant menopause policy that we've now got in place that covers everything from time off, uniform that our associates wear in the production lines, being able to be a little bit more or call in, be able to have more uniform, tips for how managers have conversations, signposting for support, and all of that grew from that sort of innovation of a network. So, they do some brilliant stuff. They're really supportive, and all of these people that are involved, this isn't their day job. They're equally as passionate about their day job, but they still find something in the tank to want to make the business brilliant so everybody can have their best experience.
I love that. That's a really great example of how, the detractors of networks kind of say, it's just a nod to this. It's a chance to kind of get together and have a bit of a catch up and a gossip. But what do they actually achieve? What are they actually there for? But you've just answered that very succinctly. So thanks very much. And a very quick, we're running out of time, as I always do. But you mentioned very quickly to me Women in Engineering Network as well.
Yeah, so Women in Engineering and Allies. Allyship is massively important as network. Again, it's about 2,000 members. About 40% of them are male allies. Again, this is focused, again, on supporting women in engineering, but there's a lot of focus on technology, lunch and learn, a lot of sharing of information, sharing of what's going on in the business, also for some specific career development needs as well. So the Women in Engineering Network ran a campaign called Level Up, which was basically really simple in its terms. All our jobs get advertised through our HR systems as normal, but they actually took some of these jobs and advertised them in a slightly different way on the network, just to get people to apply. This isn't about trying to force females into role. This is just to get people to feel that confidence that they can apply, and also be able to, for people in the network, to be able to talk to maybe people who are doing the job that they don't know because their circle is quite small at the moment, and actually say, we've already got these people doing these roles, go and talk to those. So, networks, there is a natural overlapping of networks because they all want everybody to be their best authentic self at work. But I think the specialisms that the Women in Engineering bring, especially with innovation and working in a heavily technical world, is really meaningful.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're on to life lessons, the last part of the podcast. Amy, what life lesson can you give us today?
I would say funnily enough, you've used the phrase a couple of times, Lisa, but I think sometimes this is something that I haven't become comfortable with until I've become a mum and become a bit more experienced in my career, but to not be afraid to be your authentic self. I think being in a traditionally male-dominated environment, there can be a tendency when you're a bit younger and a bit insecure to feel like you have to fit in with perhaps those more male stereotypes that you see around you. But as you get a bit older, maybe have children, become a bit more comfortable in yourself, you realise actually that's absolutely not needed at all, and you can go into any situation, be your authentic self. If that is a case of, like I was earlier in the week doing some direct training with a truck, and I made a bit girly noises when I thought another truck was getting a bit close to me, it doesn't matter. Just be your authentic self.
Thank you very much. We'll take that. And Lisa, what about you?
Mine was going to be a little bit more back to my roots of engineering, actually. So we've got brilliant engineers, lots of people coming through. I think that the top tip would be you've got to be a great team player, and you've got to be a really slick communicator, because in these big, powerful, innovative industries we work in, nobody does anything on their own. So when you're first starting your career, get really comfortable with being a good communicator, get really comfortable with working in diverse teams, because it will serve you well in the future.
Brilliant. Amy and Lisa, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.